Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, whose true name is Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, whose true name is Yahweh Shai, whom this world ignorantly calls Christ. Shalom to my brothers on the highways and hedges amongst all camps, pushing this word in truth and sincerity. Shalom to the sisters who are married, who are not married, who are reverencing husbands, or reverencing the Most High God, believing in the Son, and keeping the commandments, having faith. Shalom to the children as well, who are reverencing their parents and doing all that they can to keep the commandments and have faith in these last days. Shalom to the nation as a whole, you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, and people like Caribbeans, who are the true Israelites according to history, archaeology, and prophecy. So the title of this video is original sin biblical? Because I've had discussions with the individuals and people who believe, I've seen people discuss this, the idea or the theology of original sin. We're going to take a look at it, see what the ideology is, see what the definition is, and see if it's aligned with scripture or a biblical understanding. So with that, we can just jump right into it. So first, we're going to go to the definition. And so this is the definition of original sin, or the whole concept of original sin. And it says, original sin is a term that defines the nature of mankind's sinful condition because of Adam's fall. It teaches that all people are corrupted by Adam's sin through natural regeneration, by which, together with Adam's imputed condemnation, we all enter into the world guilty before God. Original sin shows that we sin because we are sinners, entering this world with a corrupt nature and without hope apart from the saving grace of God and the gospel. Now, this would be the definition. Now, there's some things I agree with, there's some things I don't agree with. So, for one, I agree that we are in these chains of darkness, these bodies that subject to vanity through Adam's transgression. I will prove that momentarily. But I do not believe that we enter into this world guilty. And I will pose this question to any individual who subscribes to the totality of the original sin doctrine, in that we all enter into the world sinners. We have to demonstrate what sin is, how a baby sins as soon as they're born, and we have to go through those line of questioning to see, does that hold weight? Does that notion that we enter into this world just sinning and a sinner, does that hold up based on what the Bible says and based on what sin is? We're going to discuss those things momentarily as well. And it says, hatred. So original sin shows that we sin because we are sinners, entering this world with a corrupt nature and without hope, apart from the saving grace of God and the gospel. And the gospel, just for clarification as well, the gospel is what we find in Isaiah 61, which the Messiah quotes, as well as what we find in Isaiah 52. But the Messiah quotes Isaiah 61 and Luke chapter 4 for clarification's sake. And so this is what we see. We see that the definition would be, though we're born into this natural sinful flesh, and so we're automatically just sinners, which is not true, as well as so those are two things. That original sin is founded upon the fact that we are sinners based upon the transgression of Adam. We're born into the sinful flesh, and so we're automatically sinners based on what Adam did in his transgression. So now let's go to 2 Ezra 4 and the start of verse 30. Because I don't disagree that we are born into these. Let's just do that first. Let's do that. Let's go to Blue Letter Bible. Let's pull that up momentarily, because you have to define a couple things. You can't just jump into stuff. You have to take our time and go through things thoroughly, concisely, and precisely. So let's go to Romans, because we are made subject to vanity. We are given into these chains of darkness, as it talks about in the book of Jude. So let's go to Romans chapter 8, and we're going to read these in a couple different translations. So let's start at verse 20. And it says, against his will, all creation was subjected to God's curse, but with eager hope. So I'll go here, and I'm going to go to another scripture momentarily to make it known that I don't disagree that we are subject to vanity. We're made in these fleshly evil bodies because of Adam's transgression, but I don't take the stance that you're just automatically a sinner once you're born. And scripture does not support that theology or that mind or that that position. It supports the idea that we're subject to these sinful bodies because of the transgression of Adam and Eve, but we're not born into this world sinners. That's not true. That's not in any way, shape, or form true. And that's something a lot of people just run and say without truly understanding what that means. Right. And so we're going to get the definition of what sin is, 1 John 3 and 4. And there's various other scriptures within the Old Testament to demonstrate what sin is as well. So this is just me getting straight to the point. 1 John 3 and 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. So if you're saying we're born into this world sinners, you have to demonstrate what law did we break as soon as we were born. You have to show from when a child cannot comprehend, cannot speak, cannot understand, what law did they break, and you have to demonstrate that within Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, or Deuteronomy to show that law that they broke. Otherwise, that notion that we are born sinners is not true and it is false. So let's keep going. Now we went there. Let's go to 2 Ezra 14. Because once again, I don't disagree. We're born into these chains of darkness, these bodies that subject to vanity. We just read that in Romans 8. I agree with that. So let's read here in 2 Ezra 2 Ezra 4. Forgive me. So this is 2 Ezra 4 and 30. And it says, for the grain of evil seed had been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. And how much ungodliness had it brought unto this time? And how much shall it yet bring forth until the time of threshing come? Ponder now by thyself how great fruit of wickedness the grain of evil seed had brought forth. Now I'm going to break this down very thoroughly and concisely. Because here we see that the evil seed was sown in Adam from the beginning. Adam was always meant to transgress. It talks about that in, let's get that really quick as well. That the Most High God has planned everything out from the beginning. Let's go to Isaiah 46 and 10. Isaiah 46 and 10. Now, when people say, oh, God didn't make us into this corruptible image, we made ourselves corruptible. No, we read that in Romans 8 that the Most High God has made us unto subjects of vanity, but he also gave us hope. We see here in Isaiah 46 and 10, let's read that. It says, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. We read that in Psalms 33. We read that in Proverbs 19, I believe, that the Most High God, whatever he plans to do is going to be done. And we see that everything he has planned to do has been decided way before the creation. It's been everything that's going to happen in the end days has been declared from the beginning. So everything the Most High God has planned, it will happen the way that he planned it. So let's go back. It says, for the evil seed had been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. So before Adam was even on the scene, it was decided that an evil seed was going to be in his heart and that he was going to transgress, right? And how much ungodliness had it brought unto this time? And how much shall it bring forth until the time of threshing come? Because we see that because of that transgression, we are made into subjects of vanity. We understand that. Now, we also have to understand that people have I won't say people have a decision, they quote unquote have the decision to give into that evil nature or to resist and live righteously or godly. That is the difference between someone who's willfully sinning and someone who was once ignorant but now wants to live a righteous lifestyle. You have to understand the difference to understand that that concept that we're all born sinners is not in fact true. Now, I'll pose this question. I always pose this question, and I'll save it momentarily. But let's get more on that, on how we're given an evil seed through the transgression of Adam. This is Ecclesiastes 25, and I'll start at verse 23. A wicked woman abateth the courage, maketh a heavy countenance, and a wounded heart. A woman that would not comfort her husband is distressed. Is in distress, maketh weak hands and feeble knees. Because we know what that's like not to for a woman not to support a man, and how there's a study I see that's been done. I have to look into it myself. That the strength, the support, and the nurturing nature of a woman with her husband actually helps the husband succeed more. But that's not the point of why I go here. Verse 24, of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. So through the transgression of Adam and Eve, Eve was deceived first, and then Adam followed along with the woman. We all died because now we're made into these fleshly tabernacles that die. We were once living for extended periods of time without having to worry about death in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. But now that has been shortened because of the transgression of Adam. And we're going to read that in Genesis 6. But let's go to 2 Ezra 7, and we're going to start at verse 10 through 13. So let's go to second Ezra 7. We're going to start at verse 10. And I said, "It is so, Lord." Then he said unto me, "Even so also is Israel's portion, because for their sakes I made the world. So the world was made for the Israelites' sake. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, which was planned from the beginning, then was the decree now is done. Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. There are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world, so the world before it was made narrow, full of sorrow and travail, through the transgression of Adam, were wide and sure and brought immortal fruit, because it was easy to enter in at that point before the transgression of Adam. But since it was the transgression of Adam, we're now made into these bodies of vanity. It's now sorrow, travail, full of evil, perils, is very painful. And now we have to enter into the kingdom through labor, through work. We see that in Genesis 3 as well, through the judgments given to Eve, to Adam, and the deceitful nation. It's not a literal serpent. So now, going to understanding this, we went to 2 Ezra 4 and 30, we went to Ecclesiastes 25 to understand that we're made into these subjects of vanity where Adam was given that evil seed, and it's bringing so much evil now, and that through the woman we now die. And we see here in 2 Ezra that the word was made narrow through a transgression. So I don't disagree that because of Adam's transgression, we're now in this evil time where evil is growing more and more, and we're in these chains of darkness and in this corruptible flesh because of that transgression. But we are not sinners as soon as we're born, and I'm going to dispel that momentarily, because I'll always ask this question: if we're sinners as soon as we're born, what sin did the baby commit? And I have yet to receive an answer. You have to show me what sin is, what sin what sin the baby committing. You have to demonstrate that in the law. And someone could say that, oh, it's not that they committed a sin, it's through the transgression of Adam, through Adam's sin. Okay, there's going to be a problem, and I'm going to prove that momentarily as well. But let's continue on. Let's go to Genesis 6, because this is going to clarify what I meant by when I said through Adam's transgression, more wickedness has exceeded or grown in that time. Let me just make sure. Yep. It says, "Ponder not thyself how great fruit of wickedness and grain of evil seed had I brought forth." Right. So now let's go to Genesis 6. So this is Genesis 6, and we'll start at verse 1. "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were brought unto them." So keep in mind that very first verse, it says, when men began to multiply the face of the earth. Let's go to see what man here. See what man means here. So Adam, that's what it means, men. So now it says man, mankind, man, human being, man, mankind, Adam, first man. This is not Adam, because Adam was already stated back in Genesis 2, 3, and so on. But we see here that Adam, man, began to multiply with the daughters. It's likened just unto man. Lo, man, human being, another, hypocrite, sort, man, mankind. This is not this specific man, Adam. This is mankind, because we know that Adam was not only the only man, Eve was not the only woman. So this is Genesis 5, and I started verse 1. "This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and he blessed them and called their name Adam." Last time I checked, Adam named Eve, the woman that was given unto him, Eve. So how is this talking about both of them? It's not. It's talking about other individuals being around this time other than Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were not the only two people at this time. And it says, in that day, when they were created, man and female was created outside of Eve, and they were Adam and Eve, and they were created. That's why it's called their name Adam. Adam just means Adam, just means mankind or man. So let's go back to Genesis 6. Just to provide clarity on that first verse, let you know, like, this is talking about man multiplying with the daughters, right? So verse 2, "And the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all which they chose." These sons of men, sons of God, are in reference to men here, not some angels having sex with people. That's not biblical. Angels are celestial. Man is terrestrial. Know the difference. Talks about that in 1 Corinthians 15, right? Verse 3. It says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And this is what I was going to referring to here. Give me 1 second. I think it might have been Ecclesiastes 25, where it talks about us, about the days being shortened, and that our years was shortened because of the wickedness that we're doing. It says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And we see prior to the transgression of Adam that he was living a very long life, almost 1,000 years, but not exactly. Right. And so it says, so we see that the difference between 900 from Adam all the way down until when man begins to multiply here, that it's shortened from 900 years to 120. Right. It says, these are the giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. And remember, sons of God is men. And I'm going to clarify what giants mean here. This is not 10 feet people, 30, 50 feet people who was on the earth at this time. Right? And it says, and they bare children to them. And the same became mighty men, which were old, men of renown. So these men, these children that were born of the sons of God and the daughters who are giants, they became mighty men, which were old, men of renown. Let's go to giants here. Let's go to giants. So when we go to giants here, it says giants, the Nephilim. People have all types of pseudo doctrine about the Nephilim, but I'm going to provide clear edification. So it says here, so all the ancient versions says giant in the sky, the constellation Orion. The etymology of this word is uncertain. Some have compared, right? But it says which gig and cast render great, large in body. So many people think these are literal giants, great and large in body. But this is incorrect, for it means excellent, noble, skillful, stature, renowned, as we just read in the same verse. So that's what it means. It's not talking about some 50, 100 feet people. It's talking about men of renown, men who are excellent, noble, skillful. And that's important to understand when you truly understand the Bible and you don't think of this mysticism and things that aren't really in the Bible. Right, in verse 6. And they repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Heart just symbolic for your mind. Verse 7. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for repented me that I have made them. So we see here that the days were shortened of man because of their wickedness, as well as well, I won't say their wickedness. I say man's days are shortened because of the transgression of Adam. And so we see a decrease to 120. And when man began to multiply, greatness and wickedness began to grow in the earth. Now, one can say, see, this proves that we're all born sinners. No, because this does not say the children were just automatically sinning as soon as they were born. The children could have grew up and been around and influenced by sinful people who also grew up and grew around sin. That does not mean they were initially born sinning. There's a difference between that. And so my other question would be, if someone was born into this world and they were shielded from all the evil influences, from social media, from all the propaganda, from all the pseudoscience, from the lies, from deceit every corner, from false prophets, from anything that turn away from the Most High God, if they are shielded from that and they have no exposure to that from when they're a baby, from 6 months old to they're 20, would you say they will be doing evil stuff as we see in the world amongst young children today, amongst adults, amongst the elderly? No. Why? Because they did not have those external factors influencing them to cause them to do such evil, wicked things. The same way, if you raise up a child in a world full of wickedness, full of evil, naturally, I mean, not naturally, but encouraging them to do things against the Most High God, they're going to do that evil. That does not mean upon their birth they were already sinning. They were just influenced by the evil nature of this world. And if you shield that same child from the evil of this world, they're not going to grow up sinning. They're going to be less likely to sin and be classified as a sinner. despite they might not do everything according to the Most High God's law. So when I say sinner, I mean someone who's willfully sinning. No one is willfully sinning as soon as they're born, not even ignorantly sinning, because a child did not break any type of law that God had gave. All right, so let's go to 2nd Ezra 14, because this is I'm gonna expound upon how through Adam's seed we are now, through Adam's transgression, we see that evil is growing at a rapid rate. We saw that within Genesis 6, that after Adam's transgression, evil starts to rise, not because of people being born into sin, literally being, as soon as they're born, they're sinning. It's because of the evil influences and external factors that factor into people doing wickedness and indulging in it. That's the difference. And this is you have to really think when you want to understand what it means, what the original sin means and how it's not biblical. You have to really question and reason. So this is 2nd Ezra 14, and I'll start at verse 10. For the world has lost its youth because the world is getting older. At the time, and the times began to wax old because the world is getting old and older, the earth. For the world is divided into 12 parts, and the 10 parts of it are gone already, and a half a 10 part. So that'd be like 9 for 30 or something like that sort. And there remaineth that which is after a half and a 10 part. And now therefore set thine house in order, and reprove thy people, comfort such of them that be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. Right, so let go from the mortal thoughts, because our mind is deceitful and desperately wicked, and our mind weighs down the earthly tabernacle, which muses upon many things. Or the earthly tabernacle weighs down our mind that muses upon many things. Cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature. Set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste to flee from these times. Haste to flee from these evil influences of this world and from the evil external factors that surround you. All right, set your household in order, get your spirit right. Verse 16, for yet greater evils than these which thou hast seen happen shall be done thereafter. Adding on to what was in Genesis 6 and even in 2nd Ezra 4, that evil is going to continue to grow through the transgression of Adam, and not because people are born sinning, but because there's so much evil rampant externally through various avenues, through various ways throughout the world, that is going to continue to get more and more evil. This does not help original sin's opponents who propagate original sin, because it's like it's going to bring my question again. Are they wicked because of the external factors that are already there, or are they wicked because they are willfully indulging in said evil practices propagated by the world, as opposed to someone who's sheltered, who's never shown that evilness and that wickedness of the world? Who are less likely to be classified as a sinner? That's the difference that needs to be made. And a child still has to be, and it has to be shown to me how a child sins as soon as they're born and what law did they break. Those are my two questions that will always pose to someone who holds this position that we're just all sinners as soon as we're born, which is not, in fact, biblical. So now we see that wickedness is increasing because of the transgression of Adam. And this adds to my point that I was making, that we all subject to these vain bodies, and many people have gives into it willingly, even when corrected, to provide a truth on how they should not do such things. So this is 2nd Ezra 15. I'll start at verse 1. And it says, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the credulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in that unfaithfulness. So if you don't believe, you're going to die in that unbelief. Verse 5. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the earth, the sword, famine, death, and destruction, which the Messiah talks about as well, in other future prophecy about the day of the Lord. For wickedness has exceedingly polluted the whole earth. The hurtful works are fulfilled. Like it talks about in Genesis 15, that the Amorite sins has reached the high heavens. That's the same thing with Mystery Babylon talks about in Revelation 18, and as well as the wickedness of just the world in general, how it's reached its height. So let's continue to go to 2 Timothy. I'm going to go here now to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 3. We're going to start at verse 1. This is what is going to take place in these last days as well, these perilous times, as Paul is writing to Timothy. And this was during AD, while Genesis happened during the BC era, as well as when 2nd Ezra was given. So this is 2 Timothy 3, starting at verse 1. You should know this, Timothy, that in the last days there will be very difficult times, for people will love only themselves and their money. It talks about this as well in 2nd Ezra 16. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God. This is that wickedness that's exceeding and growing in great height, as we just read in 2nd Ezra 15. Disobedient to their parents, which is a law that you're supposed to keep. You're supposed to reverence your parents and obey them. And ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control or temperance. They will be cruel and hate what is good. They will betray their friends, be reckless, puffed up with pride, and love pleasures more than God. Romans 1 talks about this as well, right? And so verse 5, they will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. People, we see this today. People want to be over righteous, over zealous, over religious, but they don't truly have the power that makes them godly because they reject those things and follow traditions of said religions. Right? Stay away from people like that. Verse 6. They are the kind who work their way into people's homes and win the confidence of vulnerable women who are burdened with guilt of sin and controlled by various desires. Such women are forever following new teachings, but they are never able to understand the truth. And we see it today how there be many women within various religions, various ideologies that are false, believing it just for the sake of their various desires and guilt of sin. And all these various teachings they follow, but never understanding what is true. What is truth is the word of the Most High God, the prophecies, the law. All of these things are what's true. And so when we see here that all of this wickedness will be upon the earth in these last days and perilous times, we see that this is due to the transgression of Adam, as we read in 2nd Ezra 4, and we see it in 2nd Ezra 15 and 14. So let's go to Romans. Let's go to Romans. Chapter 5, verse 12. And it says, when Adam sinned, sin entered the world. Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone, for everyone sinned. This is not, once again, many people can go here to Romans 5 and 12 and say, see, that's saying that everyone is now a sinner because Adam sinned. And so now, since Adam brought death, death spread to everyone. That means as soon as they're born, they're sinners. No, this is saying for everyone's sin, meaning this can still apply to my point in my position that when someone is born, they're influenced and grow up in a culture of wickedness and evil as to where they partake in it as well, making them sinners. Not that they were born just sinning automatically. That is a very false notion to go with when you present the ideology. But I do agree that through Adam's sin did enter into the world. He did bring forth death, and death spread to everyone because that's what was mentioned when I first went to 2nd Ezra 4 and 30, that evil seed was planted, and through that evil seed, death and travail would be brought into the world. Evil will be brought into the world. Likening us being in these fleshly bodies, that wants to do nothing but wicked desires, and people giving into that wicked desire to create a more and more wicked world. Not that you're born just willfully doing wickedness. That's not true. And so let's go to 2nd Ezra 5, 1 through 2. Let's go to 2nd Ezra 5. So this is 2nd Ezra 5, and I'll start at verse 1. Nevertheless, concerning the tokens, behold, the day shall come that they which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number, and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. But iniquity shall be increased above that which thou now seest, or that thou hast heard long ago. This going back to what I brought on 2nd Ezra 14, 15, and 4, that wickedness is going to exceed and grow even after the time of Adam. We see in Genesis 6 that has been the case. Not because they were born willfully sinning, but because through the sinful nature of our flesh, we indulged in such wickedness willfully and disregarded that which was true, that was what we should have done. And because of that, more wickedness began to grow because we forsaken that which was true and cleaved unto that which was evil and wicked. Right, so now let's go to Matthew 24 and 12. As the Messiah mentions that iniquity will abound as well. And we're going to get this in a different translation. I think it might be the NLT as well. So this is Matthew 24 and 12. And it says, sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. Second. So here it says, sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold, because sin is going to grow so abundant and so prevalent that many people are going to start to lose that love for one another, as Paul talks about in his letter to Timothy in 2 Timothy 3 and 1 through 7. See here, the Messiah makes that same thing known here. So once again, my 2 questions will be: someone have to show me what sin did a baby commit, what sin did a young person commit as soon as they were born. You have to show me what sin is, show me what was the sin that they broke. And you have to demonstrate that through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then you have to answer my second question, that if someone is shielded from the world, from its evil influences, and they're taught to control their flesh and taught the scriptures, taught to apply faith, have works, and have faith in the Most High God and keep his commandments, they will be less likely to sin and do that which is evil inside the Most High God. I don't mean what they won't have temptations, but you have to answer. If I shield a child from the influences of this wicked world, will they be more likely or less likely to become wicked or a sinner? Knowing what sin is and knowing what's classified as sin, as opposed to if I raise a child in the wickedness and sin, are they going to be a sinner? And then if I teach them to indulge in this wicked and corruptible flesh, are they going to be a sinner? The answer would be yes. As opposed to if I shield the child and I raise them up in spiritual matters, I teach them to deny the flesh. I teach them to have faith, keep the commandments, do as God says. They're going to be less inclined to be influenced by this world. And so now we're going to touch on this part, this aspect. So this is Psalms 51. And we start at verse 1. Well, actually, we'll just go to verse 5. Well, we just start at verse 1. I don't want to have people think that I don't go to context. So this is Psalms 51 and 1. It says, have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love, because of your great compassion. Blot out the stains of my sins. Now look here. Look what it says here. A Psalm of David. So this is David. Regarding the time Nathan, the prophet, came to him after David had committed adultery. So this is David's psalm after he committed adultery. Right? It says, wash me clean from my guilt. Purify me from my sin. And this is beautiful because this is the context, not that David was born and this is him upon his birth. And that you're going to find out why I say that. But this is David after he committed adultery, after he sinned and broke a law. It says, wash me clean from my guilt. Purify me from my sin. For I recognize my rebellion. It haunts me day and night. It says, against you and you alone have I sinned. I have done what is evil in your sight. You will be proved right in what you say, and your judgment against me is just. For I was born a sinner, yes, from the moment my mother conceived me. Now, many people here go to this verse to say, see, that now means that now disproves what you're saying, because you're saying that it's not when you're born you're automatically a sinner. But we say it is, pursuant of Psalms 51 and 5. Right, but when it says here, surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. Indeed, I was guilty when I was born. I was sinful when my mother conceived me. Behold, I was brought forth in guilt, and in sin my mother conceived me. Now this, once again, does not meaning that David was automatically a sinner as soon as he was born. So when we say that we're born into these subjects of vanity, this flesh wants to sin. That does not mean a child, as soon as they're born, sins. You have to show me what sin did that baby commit, as well as, like I mentioned before, like we see that through Adam, through his transgression, that illness will grow. So if David was shielded from this evil that this world presents, will he be more likely or less likely to grow as a so-called sinner, quote unquote? Or is it just the fact that we dwell within this sin-like flesh that prompts, that try to provoke us to willfully sin? If I teach a child not to entertain that flesh, to control his thoughts, to keep the faith, to have works to establish his faith, to have faith in works, is that child more likely or less likely to entertain the wickedness of the world? If he's shielded and he's guided with spiritual things instead of carnal, evil, wicked things. So once here, people can try to make the argument here with Psalms 51:5, but they still to be wrong, because you have to show me what sin did David commit when he was born, what sin do we commit as soon as we're born. And you have to answer my second question, or acknowledge what I said in my second statement. Because I still take the notion that we're born into these sin-like flesh, but we are not automatically sinners as soon as we're born, because we don't have knowledge of anything. We didn't sin exactly as soon as we came out the womb. That's not accurate. It's not biblical. As well as understanding, now we're going to transition, because if people take the stance that we are automatically sinners as soon as we're born because of what the transgression Adam did, and we're held to that same guilt, you're going to have a problem when we go here. Let's go to Ezekiel 18. I need anyone who holds to this original sin ideology wholeheartedly to explain this to me. Ezekiel 18:20. And it says, the person who sins is the one who will die. The child will not be punished for this parent's sin. You got to explain that. How is it that you're saying that Adam's transgression, we're now automatically guilty, but I read here in Ezekiel that the child shall not be punished for the parent's sin? I says the person who sins is the one who would die. And it says, and the parent will not be punished for the child's sin. So here we see that the parent is not punished for the wickedness that the child does, and the child is not punished for the wickedness that the parent did. So if we're all automatically sinners as soon as we're born because of Adam, you'll say that's a contradiction. When it's not a contradiction, it's just you don't understand. Many people don't understand what they believe in. Many people don't understand how false and inaccurate the original sin ideology is. So what you have to understand, brothers and sisters, is that we're in this flesh that's prone to wickedness because of the transgression of Adam. But each child that's born is not automatically wicked and does not suffer the guilt of Adam, meaning they're going to be punished for what Adam did. We're punished by being in these wicked flesh, and being in this wicked world has grown so wicked because of these corruptible bodies. That's the curse, being made subject to vanity. Not that the child sins as soon as it's born, and not that we're just automatically sinners and prone to just sin on and on and on. That's not true. And here we see that that's not true in Ezekiel 18, because if Adam transgressed by this logic in Ezekiel 18, let me see. And this is verse 1. Then another message came to me from the Lord. So this is all the Lord speaking here. So you're going to say the Lord is wrong here? You wouldn't dare say that. So how is it that we see that we're all guilty automatically, but we're not punished for what our parents did, and our parents are not punished for what we do, but we're all guilty from the transgression of Adam? That's not a good. There's a line of reason that we're missing, and that line of reasoning is that we're made into these corruptible bodies that are subject to vanity, but we're not automatically sinners. Because there's nothing that a child does as soon as it's born that classifies it to sin, classifies it as a sinner. The same way, if you shield the child from the evil influences of this world, it's less likely to sin and less likely to do evil and wickedness, as opposed to raising a child in wickedness in an evil environment. Right? So it says, righteous people will be rewarded for their own righteous behavior, and the wicked people will be punished for their own wickedness. Let's get that in Deuteronomy 24, because that's in the law that God gave to Moses to tell the children of Israel. So you're going to say God is wrong? I need my questions answered. So this is Deuteronomy 24:16. And it says, parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. So this was made not only in the law, which is given by God, but by God himself in Ezekiel 18, that we are not going to be judged for the things our parents did. And so the parents isn't going to be judged for the thing the child does. So how are we now automatically guilty as soon as we're born, when according to the law and according to the words of Yahweh, that we're not going to be put to death for the sins of the children, for the sins of our parents? There's a lot of reasoning that's not being made within this notion that we're just automatically sinners and guilty from birth. That's not biblical. But what is biblical is that we are given these corruptible bodies due to the transgression of Adam, and we die the way that we do through the transgression of Adam. That's what I hold to. I don't hold to this idea that we just automatically are born into the world sinning. That's not true. Now, many people, once they're older and they are influenced by external evil, then yes, they can indulge in the flesh and be sinners, willfully sinning, even when they know the truth, or sinning in ignorance. That's different as opposed to you being born and just sinning right then and there. When you have no knowledge, no understanding, and you just came out the womb. That doesn't make sense, and it's not biblical. That's, and on top of that, knowing that we should not be put to death for the sins of our parents, for the parents being put to death for the children, everyone being put to death for their own crimes, we have to understand that that can't be true if we're automatically guilty, if we're judged according to our own works, not because of what Adam did, but because we are doing the wickedness now when we have the ability to stop, or we're doing righteousness now and not doing wickedness. Let me demonstrate what I mean. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus 16 and verse 12. And it says, as his mercy is great, the Most High God, so is his correction also. He judges the man according to his works. So the Most High God judges man according to what they do. How is it that we're now guilty automatically for what Adam did, but we see here we're not going to be judged according to what our parents do, and the parents not judged what the children are doing, and also we're judged according to what we do within ourselves. You can't have it both. You can't say we're automatically guilty, but then we're still judged even more according to our own works. It's not how that works. Right, verse 14. Make way for every work of mercy, for every man shall find according to his works. It doesn't say for the works of Adam. It doesn't say for the transgression of Adam. It says for our own works, given to the credence that we're born, that my standpoint, we're born in this sinful flesh, although we don't have to entertain it. And because of this sinful flesh, many people indulge in it, which brings about all the wickedness that has increased to its height, as various scriptures I want to demonstrate it. Right? But we all are going to be judged for the good and the evil that we do, which I'm going to prove again with 2 Corinthians. Let's go there. 2 Corinthians 5 and 10. This is a very heavy and complicated topic that many people will not understand regardless. But this is for those who will understand that we are in the sinful nature, this flesh, and because of this sinful flesh, many people indulge in it. That increases sin to its abundance. But we are not born sinners. We don't sin as soon as we're born. And we are judged for our own works, not because of what Adam did in that sense. Now let's go to 2 Corinthians 5 and 10. It says, we must all stand before Christ to be judged, or Hamashiach. We will each receive whatever we deserve for good or evil we have done in this earthly body. This is what I mean. Many people in this tabernacle of evil and wickedness will do good. Many people will indulge in that evil and do evil. It's not about you being born in sin. It's about you, whether you do good works in this earthly tabernacle that's corruptible, that's evil, that's subject to vanity, or you indulge in it, or you resist. That is what makes you a sinner. If you entertain this flesh and do wickedness according to what God has not commanded us to do, or you do good according to what God commands us. Not if you're born a sinner, automatically breaking God's law, which that's not true. Or if you have no knowledge of it, now you're just classified as a sinner. That's not true. That's not biblical. All right, so let's go to Psalm 62 and verse 12. Lord willing, this is making sense. So Psalm 62 and 12. Unfailing love, O Lord, is yours. Surely you will repay all people according to what they have done. To what Adam did? No, to what they have done. Once more, and I'm going to clarify this one more time. The transgression of Adam has led to the abundance of sin because of our sinful flesh. but that does not mean we're born into sin. Lord willing, those who will hear it will hear it. But you are not sinning as soon as you're born, but it's because of external factors, you're more likely or less likely, depending on your situation, to be indulgent in the sinful, corruptible flesh or less indulgent to the sin and corruptible flesh. Many people go to Psalms 51 and 5 ignorantly, disregarding the context and the fact that you have to show me what sin they committed, as well as the various scriptures I'm presenting in Ezekiel 18, Deuteronomy 24 and 16, Ecclesiasticus 16, 2 Corinthians 5, Psalm 62, and so on. But let's continue. Let's go to Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah 20. Let's go to Jeremiah 32. Jeremiah 32 and I think it's 19. Nope. No, 33. Forgive me. No. Oh, it's an NLT. That's why. This is Jeremiah 32 and 19. And it says, "Great in counsel and mighty in work, for thine eyes are open upon all the ways of the sons of men, to give everyone according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doing." Now, the fruit is just symbolic of works. And we see that with the fruit of his doings, things that you do, things that you labor for, things you put your hands to, the things you act upon. That's likened unto fruit, because man is likened unto trees, right? And so I won't get too deep off into that, but let's continue. We see here through various scriptures I'm presenting that you're judged for your own work, not because of what Adam did, although we are experiencing these tabernacles because of transgression of Adam. We are not just perpetually guilty because of what Adam did. We are judged because of our own works, because of what we do while in these corruptible bodies given because of Adam's transgression. Right? This is Ezekiel 14 and 20. And it says, "Though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, as I live, saith the Lord God, they shall deliver neither son nor daughter. They shall but deliver their own souls by their own righteousness." Adding to what I went to in Ezekiel 18, Deuteronomy 24, and so on, about the father not being just for the children and children not being just for the father, but them each being able to deliver their own souls by their righteousness. We see demonstrated here. All right, let's go to Philippians 2. As we see now, Lord willing, that this idea that we're in these corruptible bodies, yes, that's true because of the transgression of Adam, because that now leads people to indulge in this sin and this flesh and bring about more wickedness. But we are not for the last and final time born into sin, because you have to show me what sin we committed. And you also have to explain these verses that say we are not judged based on what the parents did, but we're judged according to our own works, as I presented as well. So this is Philippians 2 and 12. It says, "Wherefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling." The same thing we see in Ezekiel 14 and 20. We are to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling, as Paul wrote to the church in Philippi. He's telling them to work out their own salvation. But we see here that, for one, he's telling them to work at something, to work at their salvation, which this kind of disproves the idea that we don't need works to be saved, as well as him making it known that we are able to save our own souls with our righteousness. Not with our righteousness, but the Most High God's righteousness. There's nothing we can do, but we have to obey the Most High God and have faith. It's not on our own accord, though. So let's go to Jeremiah 17, because this is going to add to what I went to in Jeremiah 32 and 19. But this is Jeremiah 17 and 10, and it says, "I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doing, according to what he produced, what he acts upon within his thoughts." As it talks about in James chapter 1, within those thoughts, if you act upon those act upon those thoughts, they bring forth sin, and sin brings forth death. And that's how death entered the world, because of sin, because of men being in these corruptible bodies, doing the things that are classified as sin, as God does not want us to do, not that they were born into sin, willfully doing it, but upon them growing up and being influenced by external factors, now they're indulging in the flesh, bringing about more evil. There needs to be that distinct and specific difference because people do not understand what they speak. Let's go to Galatians 6 and 7. This is Galatians 6 and 7. And it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And the man shall not have his children judged by what he does within his personal life, or the children have the parents judged by what they do in their personal life." That needs to be understood as well. We're going to get one more. Let's go to 1 Kings 8 and 39. This is 1 Kings 8 and 39. And this is the prayer Solomon is throwing up for various things that might happen upon the children of Israel and how we might pray towards the east, towards our land, towards the temple. And it says, "Then hear thou in thy dwelling place, and forgive, and do, and give to every man according to his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou, even thou only, knowest the hearts of all the children of men." And this is the same precedent that I gave with Psalm 62, 2 Corinthians 5, Ecclesiastes, and Ezekiel, and various other scriptures I could provide forth about us being judged according to our own works. So for this final closing, I would just mention that with this original sin doctrine, it's false in a sense of us being born sinners. I agree. We are born into these chains of darkness, this corruptible flesh that's subject to vanity. And the wickedness has increased not only through the transgression of Adam and Eve, but because many people in this world indulge in wickedness willfully, and they bring about more and more wickedness. And so we have to understand. I understand that we are born into subject to sin, but we're not all born sinners. A child does not sin as soon as it's born. I would need someone to provide a verse or an example that proves that. And I also make it known that if a child is sheltered from the evil factors of this world, they're less likely to become sinner or wicked, as opposed if you raise someone in wickedness, they're most likely to become a wicked individual. That shows that you can either have control over if you indulge it or if you resist. Now, also, someone has to explain Ezekiel 18 and 20, Deuteronomy 24, Ecclesiastes 16, 2 Corinthians 5, that talks about us not being judged based on what our parents did, as well as us being judged according to our own works, if they want to take the position that we're just automatically guilty because of what Adam did, when scripture does not support that ideology. So with that in mind, if anyone has questions about this, if you disagree, feel free to reach out to my email at ahaziah44@gmail.com or put it in the comments. But I take the position that we are in these subjects of vanity. We are in this sinful flesh, but we are not sinners as soon as we're born. And we have the ability to resist the flesh or give into it to that degree. But we are not born into sin, and there's no sin we committed as soon as we're born to classify as a sinner, although later in life we can become sinners, which is someone who willfully sins, knowing what's right, or not knowing what's right, but knowing it's wrong according to what God says. But with that in mind, I would like to give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, whose true name is Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, whose true name is Yahweh Shai, say with the mighty strong, Shalom.